I'm David Pakman in Denver, Colorado at the National Conference for Media Reform, here with John Nichols, writer for The Nation. Great to see you.
It's an honor to be with you. Love Free Speech TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk first about the potential decline, demise of mainstream corporate media as we know it. We've been talking for years on my program and many others about the kind of monopolistic type control over a plurality of media outlets. Now we're starting to see Dial Global, for example, having to downsize. We're seeing ratings at CNN, lowest in, I think, over 20 years at this point in some time slots. What do you see? Do you see this as a reaction to something, or is this a symptom? What is it?
Look, journalism in this country for the better part of 100 years relied on an advertising model. And basically the concept was that people wanted news from a newspaper, a radio station, a television station so badly that they'd be willing to have it come, slathered in ads for toothpaste and all sorts of other stuff, and that there'd be so much advertising revenue coming in that it would work. What's changed is the ad revenues have gone elsewhere. They're going directly to people through the net. They're coming in through your phone, and as a result, you've had this decline in the revenue for traditional media. And what's tragic, what's horrible, is that traditional media's immediate response, old media as we sometimes refer to it, has been to get rid of journalism. They've just cut it out. Now, that's where the decay comes, because people wouldn't stop tuning in if they were still getting something useful. They're getting less and less and less, and they're saying, this isn't worth my time. And where we really see it is in the print newspaper. The fact is that circulation on newspapers has been declining rapidly, and if you want to see where the line is, just look at cuts in staff. You don't cover communities anymore. You don't go out and do the expensive investigative reporting anymore. At the end of the day, people they're not going to, spend their 50 cents.
We're seeing this on a number of fronts. So you mentioned investigative reporting, and that's expensive to do, and it's very valuable, but so many media outlets are instead going the route of rewriting other articles because it's so much cheaper. You can have someone sitting somewhere at a computer, essentially rewriting articles someone else has published. It's not really original reporting, and you're saving a ton of money. And even if you lose 20% of your revenue, if you're saving 40%, it's a net positive.
Well, it's a good way of looking at it, is that overwhelmingly the internet, and I've done blogging since 1999. I mean, I live on the internet, but overwhelmingly the internet is an aggregation of, a repetition of, a comment on something that's been gathered elsewhere. So very similar in cable, by and large. Like people on shows commenting and arguing about stuff. And so the actual act of going out, shoe leather journalism, is being really isolated. There's less and less of it. There's less and less resources for it. And there was a great Pew study out of Baltimore a few years ago that showed that roughly 96% of the news in the town, right, was still coming off old media sources, right? But old media was producing 73% less news stories than 20 years ago. So you've got a lot of churn around this, but not a lot of there. And people get that. Now the great crisis of the moment, and this is the thing to be really scared about, is that what we see is as old media, traditional media declines, as new media struggles because there's not the resources to do journalism, what fills the void? It's public relations. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan became president of the United States, there was a 1-to-1 ratio between journalists and PR people. Today, there is a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 PR people for every 1 journalist.
And this is particularly troubling when you look at some of the areas where media literacy is lacking, and people increasingly can't tell the difference between opinion and news journalism. I do an opinion show, and I'll get emails from people saying, I like you because you're less biased than Fox News, or more biased, whatever, I dislike you. And I don't care whether it's a positive or negative comment. My concern is this person can't seem to distinguish that, even if you don't agree that the Fox News programming is not opinion journalism. It's supposed to be reporting, and I'm doing opinion.
It's even worse, because you're still talking about, and I'm going to give you all your credit, and I'll even give Fox all their credit. But where the problem is now, we have this void being filled by direct communication from either political or corporate players. And so we have a new book coming out, Dollarocracy, that talks about all this. And television stations in swing states in 2012 cut minutes off their local newscasts to fit in more advertisements for candidates. Now, that's a very stark equation where you're spending less money as an institution to cover campaigns, and you're letting the campaign communications be paid for by the players themselves. That is no longer a functional journalism system, a functional media system. What you really have is, something that, and I'd say it very bluntly, it strays toward propaganda. It strays toward a point where those with the most money can actually communicate the most information.
Well, we know that the candidate with the most money still wins an overwhelming percentage of the time. Why wouldn't it be the same with opinion about what Monsanto is doing or whatever it is? Whoever's spending the most money on that type of opinion is probably going to influence the most number of people.
That's what we mean by the term dollarocracy. In a democracy, the best idea should over time rise, and that people will vote for it and it will become the law of the land. In a dollarocracy, even when you beat a bad idea, it loses at the polls, they come back the next day, spend some more money to put that idea back in play. And so you never beat bad ideas. You have zombie ideas. Ideas that have been beaten 100 times, walking among you, still being suggested. We see it right now in the Social Security debate.
Sure.
The American people voted overwhelmingly last year not to cut Social Security, and yet you see even Democrats coming up saying, well, maybe we could tinker with it a little.
And you see it on way more issues, too. I mean, with health care, it's widely known that if you ask people in a fair way, not the Obama plan to take over, right, but you say, should the government provide some basic level of health care for everybody? Overwhelmingly, the answer is yes. It's like 70% support. But there's no really serious discussion about that on mainstream corporate media, as if nobody really was interested in it, and that's not the case.
And if there was serious discussion, if we went deep, now this is a resource problem because we got to, advertise is not as much there, so we're going to have to find resources. Most countries fund public media and independent media a lot more via tax dollars or via fees. But let's say that there was the resources to do it in America, what we would find is that all of our debates would be different. Global warming, there'd be a different debate on that, and one that's much more realistic. Healthcare, workers' rights. And I think this is the issue, if I could focus on one thing, where the worst of all things happens. It's people who are poor, people who are underemployed, people who are on the margins economically are not covered. They are tossed to the side by most of our media. If we had a well-resourced media that was actually journalistic as opposed to being driven by the dollar and influenced so much, we'd have tremendously more coverage of low-income folks, and what would end up is we'd have better programs. We'd have better responses to the needs of those folks.
John Nichols, writer for The Nation, great to see you. We're here in Denver, Colorado at the National Conference for Media Reform.